Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to Stu and the Nun, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on the show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. We would like to thank those who make this show possible, starting with the great folks here at the Veteran Radio Syndicate. Also, we can't forget our show sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions. Bless it, my lord. I gotta change that. Hold on, why do I got static? Uh-oh. Hold on. I have lots
It's okay.
I have lots of static. Where do I got that from? Okay, it's gone.
You got it.
It's gone now. Okay. Well, I forget. I got to quit playing that intro as it keeps playing old stuff. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nun. As you see to my left, your right, I have Miss Wendy with me tonight. Welcome, Wendy, to the show.
Hi. You might see my son kind of wandering in the background. He's trying to lure the dog downstairs so you don't hear her.
Is he
We'll see if he succeeds.
Is he luring the dog with Hot Pockets?
No, pepperoni slices, and she is completely ignoring him. She's right here by my feet.
Is that the pepperoni, like the pepperoni for dogs, or like real pepperoni?
Real pepperoni slices.
Okay, there we go. Yes, and your son is clothed, which is good. That's a good thing. We don't want to see half-naked teenagers walking around in the background. And yeah, hey, guess what? People are all joining, including our number one fan, my mom. Says hello to you, Wendy.
Her.
Says hello to you and me, and yeah, all kind of stuff. So, hey, we have a lot of things to talk about tonight here on June 19th. This episode is Stu and the Nun 129. We thought last week that Toby and I were both going to be out of the country. My plans changed a little bit. My trip got deferred. Toby is out of the country doing great things with Veteran Outdoors down in Mexico. So he is not with us tonight. But as you can see, the lovely Wendy, who's much prettier than that half-bald, goatee-ridden dude, my brother there. So, Wendy, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It's always a pleasure.
Yep. We used to do a lot of shows together, didn't we? You used to really...
Yeah.
Back in the day.
You know, and then I got so super busy and just too self-focused.
Well, you used to be while you were doing great things trying to serve your community, but even before that, you were the mom of the group, to put it. You were the matriarch. You kept myself and the couple of guests, our co-hosts that we had at the time, on the straight and narrow, and really kept your foot in our butt a lot, which was helped make our show that much better and why we're at where we are today.
I call myself the den mother.
Yes, you were den mother.
I was a den mother. Just kind of,
I will give you that. Yeah.
A few F-bombs here and there when you guys drop the ball.
It happens,
but,
yeah.
You know.
We try to keep those limited on the air, even though we don't have to. We try to because, good old mom's listening. And
yeah.
But no, hey, thank you for joining tonight again. We are so excited. 129 of this show, and we are brought to you here on Facebook Live, YouTube, Spreaker, Periscope, and Twitch. We got viewers and listeners on all the mediums, so we appreciate you giving up some of your Tuesday evening to listen to Wendy and I kind of pontificate and opinionate ourselves across a number of topics tonight. So, yeah. So, Wendy, what have you been up to? We haven't seen you in a while. You were on the show a long time ago, and it's been a while. But busy with life or what?
I was going to school. I decided that I had taken enough school. I've had enough of it, so I don't need it for my job. So I'm just working and keeping busy. Where I'm actually supposed to be packing, because I'm leaving tomorrow because the mill bloggers are all meeting up.
Yep.
A lot of wonderful people, and we're all getting together. We used to do those conferences like 10, 12 years ago, and then I was always there for the social aspect of it, and I ditched the conference part
You were very
'Cause that's
social. You were social and taxi driver most of the time.
yeah, I
Um,
did. Yeah, because I always rented a minivan. So there was running up to Walter Reed or like in Vegas, I was bringing everybody home from the clubs. But, but now, we're all driving out there and it's more kind of a family thing. My son's coming with me. We're going to do some stuff in Branson and we're all going to get together. Chuck's bringing his puppies.
yeah, that's. I
And
think. I think that will be the highlight of the weekend. I think it'll be Chuck and the puppies. It won't be
yeah,
Chuck. It'll just be the puppies. Well, Chuck a little bit.
yeah, and seeing each other, loving on each other. That's what we do.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
all all of us. You, Toby. I wish you and Toby could come. Matt and Jimbo and some of the old school guys, but everybody kind of has their lives. We kind of moved on from blogging and doing conferences, but we still do this kind of what we call the family reunion. Get
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. It's been a few years since the last one I was able to make. We were in Nashville, and that was a
Yeah.
great time. Yeah, that was one of the first. I think it was one of the first ones we did. We just kind of self generated, right? We didn't have an event going on. There wasn't something at a nonprofit. That was, I think that was the first one where it was just like we're getting together, if I
Yeah,
remember
and
right.
Rich Lowe
Mm-hmm.
is amazing. He just always puts these together. He always makes sure that we don't just kind of fall into apathy about, making plans. He's always like, okay, people, are we doing this again this year? And he's wonderful about that. So he keeps us on the path, and then we all kind of general consensus or someone just kind of picks a place and we've been let's see, we did Nashville and Vegas and Branson now, so we've kind of stuck in different areas and different people who can go or not
Yeah.
go. Some people have weddings, this is wedding season, or graduation parties or family events, family reunions, so they can't attend. But there's always a core group that we get together, so it's nice to see everybody. I'm
Yeah.
excited. I'm super excited. We're going to the range too.
Yes, that's a good time. No, and you hit on a couple points here. We're going to kind of chat about this at first because I want to highlight a couple things about this get together. So this is really a whole bunch of I don't want to say use the term old, but former mill bloggers. Some still blog. I try every once in a while, but I don't get to it as much as I would like. Some write, some have maintained their site, some haven't. But what happened was a camaraderie and a friendship built out of this to the effect that people incur expenses and costs and take time off and are able to all come together and are willing to do that because there's an old saying, what is it, you can't pick your family but you can pick your friends, right, or something to that degree. But it's the people mean enough to each other that they're willing to go out of the way for that. Not all people are willing to do that for family, isn't that right, Wendy? But
You know what? Hey, I was up on a ladder at spring break with a drill and
there you go.
troubleshooting. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I mean,
And you know what?
it says a lot, though, right? We come together, and because I was supposed to be out of the country was the reason I wasn't going, and then when I got canceled, it was too late to really try to make it all work, unfortunately. So it was
Yeah, I
just the way
mean,
it worked out.
it appears that a lot of us are going to be driving. So Branson's very centrally located, and it's great for all of us to be able to kind of drive up. We all have our vehicles. We're not spending a lot on airplane fare because flying to DC, and then we all stayed at the Westin, which was kind of pricey, and everybody's trying to find roommates, and then you're doing the conference registration, and you're trying to visit and do the conference,
Yeah,
and then do other activities.
right,
I mean, I went to the gun range. I went to the NRA gun range one
right.
year because I was like, that was the year Rumsfeld was there. So I kind of regret that a little bit.
Yeah, it was a good
But
time.
yeah, kind of
The
not.
but the
It
time
was
we
fun
had some
gun
good
range.
times in Vegas. You didn't always go to the conference in Vegas, and what I found though is as days went on, less and less people showed up in the morning. Um, but we had some good times in Vegas, and Mr. Matt Burden put on some great events for us there, and we've had good times. Yeah, we had good times in DC. Um,
Yeah.
the appendages getting put on people's other appendages, and we'll say that, and haircuts, shavings of heads, hanging out with cool drummers. We just had all kind
Yeah.
of great stuff going. So yeah, so this is good. This is just like the last couple, no events, no agenda, short of what everyone wants to do and get together and do. So
Yeah.
yeah, I will be with you guys in spirit. I expect to see lots of pictures and video and funny text, and may even receive a drunk call or two, I'm sure. Not that I'm encouraging that, but yeah. So I'm jealous, and I know you're going to have a blast. And and I know your son is either going to come away with a lot of, I don't know what he's going to come away with. He could come away hiding his head in shame, uh, or
Traumatized.
very proud. I don't know, or both. He's been there before, though. I remember him and your daughter both at Nashville, so it's not like he hasn't
Yeah.
been around this crazy group of people.
Okay, but Chuck's here this year.
Mm, yeah, my family hung out with Chuck in Hawaii. They still talk about him. He leaves a mark. He's
I
he's
know, I
kind of
know.
like
So,
herpes. It stays with you forever. You never forget Chuck. So,
and there's a lot of husbands coming this year. I mean, Will's going to be there. Sherry's husband's going to be there.
does he
So,
really exist? I've never seen. I don't think I've ever seen a picture of him. I wasn't sure he really existed.
he does,
Okay.
and he's so wonderful and so sweet and very. I think the term is taciturn, where he just doesn't have a lot to say,
Hmm.
but he
I thought that was shy. Isn't it shy or no?
no,
Oh, okay.
no, no, he's not shy.
Ah,
He will tell you. He's a lot like Will.
okay.
So,
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it should be
but
good.
they're all, it's going to be a lot more men around that aren't, husbands. It's more family oriented now.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
know,
what's nice, like I say, we did East Coast, West Coast, Central. So it'll be
we haven't
interesting.
done West Coast. That
I thought
might
you
be
said
the
we did
next one.
Vegas. Then we did. Then, no, we didn't do
That's
it.
not the West Coast. Do you know any water around Vegas? What is wrong with
Well,
you?
just because West Coast doesn't mean it is water around. I mean,
West Coast. A
yeah,
coast
right.
means it's
The western half
on
of the
the water.
United States.
Okay, I
It's in
love
a
you.
time zone a time zone farther back than Central. How's that? So, oh my lord, you know how we are in the east. If you're not east of the Mississippi, then you're out west, right? So, that's the way it kind of goes. But anyways, so yeah, very excited about that. A big event this weekend. You get to see a lot of folks, and as you know, I've traveled quite a bit, and I've tried to catch up with Chuck and Taco and different people as I have, and so it's been great. You and I have caught up quite a few times.
Oh yeah.
Um, I miss getting up there in your great state and finding some awesome Korean there in downtown Milwaukee. We'll have to get back up there again. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Not many people think of
Almost you.
Korean food in Milwaukee in the same sentence, but it is pretty good.
You found a good hole in the wall.
We
Yeah.
did. A true hole in the wall, as the definition.
I get lost every time I go there. I'm just like going down the road. Damn, I missed that turn again. Fourth time in a row. Third time in a row.
That's
How do I
right.
keep missing it? Yeah.
So, hey, again, everyone, welcome. Join us in Stu and the Nun. I got Miss Wendy with me. I want to bring up the fact that, yes, you see the big logo between our noggins there. Enlisted Nine Fight Company, our sponsor, we are very, very proud of. And give us big
Oh,
support.
okay.
Colton and the guys, we love them. I just had a guy today from my gym. He saw one of my shirts I was wearing. I wear my shirts all the time. He's like, "Where do I get that at?" He texted me. I texted him the thing, and he was off ordering a shirt. So that's why I try to get the word out there. But appreciate that. If you want to talk to us, you can of course comment in the Facebook chat room. We're watching that, and you can do that, or you can text us at 512-361-1178, 512-361-1178. You can post any question you want to Wendy and I, and we'll talk about it. Excuse me. But at first, I want to get into there's a number of topics, right, Wendy? There's one thing
Yeah.
about this administration and politics and our society today because of who's in office. The media doesn't let it go, and the president he doesn't shy down from anything. He speaks his mind. He says what he wants. He knows how to generate traffic and hype and interest. Toby and I could almost do a show every day of the week and still have fresh content, I think, because it's coming at us that fast. Stuff that was hot on Friday, we've already forgot about, because there's so much going on today. And one of the hot topics, is this immigration thing going on. It has been nonstop, I would say, for the last 48 hours, almost solid. I think they're canceling
Yeah.
programming just to talk about it. And what is interesting is that if you've been paying attention to this, they're acting like this just happened. They're acting, the media is portraying it in the fact that the president has just is ripping literally like little Elian Gonzalez, if everyone remembers that episode that happened during the Bill Clinton years, as they ripped him out of the closet with an M5, M7 or whatever it was in his face. But they're acting like we're just ripping children away from their mother's bosom at the border and throwing them in dog runs or something. And a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? When people see an image in it, in that it leaves that impression, they form their own opinion.
Well, you know, the last 5 to 10 years has really switched from intelligent discussion and content to appeal to people's emotional, heartstrings. And if you can find that one case, that one tiny case of one horrible instance, that's what the press is going to take to blow up. If the press were dealing with Elian Gonzalez today and it was Trump,
They're
they would
losing their
probably
minds.
overrun the White House and lynch him
Yeah, I would agree.
because it's appealing to that. And there's so much discord in our country now. It's so funny because you guys know I tend to fall more libertarian, but I'm a conservative libertarian, and the two parties have their staunch supporters, and the libertarians have always been kind of the middle. But even as a libertarian, I I kind of like some of what Trump's doing and some of what the Republicans are doing, like here in the state of Wisconsin. They're generating a lot of new legislation, but the new legislation is actually pulling back old, dumb laws. Like kids 16 and 17 years old have to get a work permit and they have to get permission from their schools and all this other stuff. The state legislature decided that if you're 16 or 17 and you can get a job, go ahead and work. You don't need to jump through hoops to do it. Um, and I think Trump is trying to do a lot of that. So as somebody with my less is more type of mentality, I like it. But certain segments of society are always, there ought to be a law, there ought to be a law, and if you can find that tiny little segment of there ought to be a law to protect these people, or there ought to be a law to prevent everybody from doing something, like gun control, or there or discrimination, gay bakers baking for gay couples. There's always like that impetus that people they want to make laws.
Right.
um
Thank you for
except
bringing up the hot story last week, the baker, for the gay couple. See, I already forgot about it. But last week it was 24/7. Don't even care about that
that
cake
was a
anymore.
Supreme Court decision,
I
man.
know, no one cared.
but but the thing is that in terms of immigration, we have created this kind of patchwork system to allow people into our country. There are some people in this country that don't believe borders should exist at all. Well, that's fine. Why don't you go to China, Venezuela, Cuba, let's say Germany, and let's pick an African country, Gambia. Go convince those 5 nations that they don't need their borders,
Yeah.
that they don't need to defend their borders, whether it's from war, other tribes. I know Europe has the Schengen zone, but even then, there are some nations that don't want a lot of people in their country.
Right.
And so do you have national sovereignty or do you not?
Australia. I mean, right now Italy just turned away a big group of migrants trying to come in. Italy said no, we're not taking anymore. Right.
Yep.
A lot of Europe is already seeing the outcome of their open door policy, if you would, and it is overrunning them. I mean, Chancellor Merkel, she may be out. They're saying within a week because of just the uproar in her of German citizens that they're sick and tired of it. You know,
And
it's
I am squishy in a way where I have sympathy and empathy for other people who live in countries that are desperately poor or have poor economic conditions
right,
or agricultural conditions or government conditions. The thing is that they should stay and fight to improve it. Venezuela, it's almost too late. It was so funny because watching them pile it on, watching them go from like, okay, we're going to elect Chavez and then we're going to go to this socialist system. And then he started appointing his own people, and it started to become a consolidation of power under his presidency. And then the next guy, you only have one choice on the ballot.
right.
At that point, you need to revolt. And yet we have this lack of it's just easier to run. We're just going to run. We're going to run to America. We're going to run. They've crossed the border into I think Colombia. They're just going to run. Everybody's going to run. And that kind of circles back to what I posted on Facebook, where I was talking about the interpreters that helped our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. They're fighting for I mean, they wouldn't have supported the American troops if they weren't hoping that we would win, and that we would make their country better and freer, out from the Taliban, out from under some of these despots and controlling entities. And would you risk your life, your wife's life, your kid's life, your extended family, everybody? They were throwing all in. They were taking that major risk to throw all in, and then we just left them hanging.
Right, and that's near and dear to my heart. I've had a number of my interpreters who weren't killed after I left have come to the States, quite a few of them, and we've had one of them on the show. We've talked to them at great length. We raised some money for them to get started because they kind of get dropped here, and it took them years. I mean, from the moment when I was there, they were already asking me, like, how do they get here, because they'd heard other interpreters that got it. And unfortunately, in the early days, many of them were the interpreters for generals and stuff, and it essentially took that kind of weight thrown around to get them here. But you brought that up in your posting today. You put on your private Facebook, and I put that up on the show description before I wrote it up today, because I thought it was I hadn't thought of it in that aspect, even though that's such a topic near and dear to my heart. It was like, yeah, these are. I've talked about it at great length before, and I've talked about getting the interpreters here and making it easier process for them to get through, because they have literally put it all on the line. And the one thing we know is the one thing the Taliban and I'm sure ISIS, but Al Qaeda hate more than Americans are Afghans that help Americans. To them, that's the ultimate enemy right there, because they feel like they're one of their own and they're traitors. So they always had to hide themselves. Their families, or if it was found out their families, that their loved one was an interpreter, they would of course torture and maim and murder and do terrible things to their families just to get back at them, trying to convince them either them to quit or attack us, because they know they're embedded with us, and all that they go through. And there are so many hoops to jump through. It would shock most of America to know what these young men who put everything on the line, who their families really put everything on the line for them to make a few bucks, do to help us, because we could not have operated in that battle space for all those years, and still to this day we wouldn't be able to operate without them. So you bringing that up it really struck home with me today. I was like, man, how did I not think about that? Because I think that was a great analogy.
I dropped the link in Facebook, in the chat in Facebook, of what interpreters who want to come here have to go through. And it's, there are 4 steps, and each one I would think, the first 3 I would think take at least a couple of years or a year to go through. After going through all of that, I don't think people are aware that you go through all of that, and then they only allow 50 total between Afghanistan and Iraq. That there's a limit. When they talk about, oh, there's 2,000 kids, or oh, there's 10,000 kids in holding, or oh, whatever, we're talking 50 men and their families from 2 other nations who have risked their lives on behalf of our military and our country, in the hopes of, 1, improving their own country, and 2, maybe with the hopes to come here and live the American dream. And then after they jump through all these hoops and go through the whole process, then they have to wait to see if they're one of the 50 picked. And if you look at the statistics, and I can drop the link for the State Department statistics on how many they allow in, the majority of them are actually from Afghanistan. The last several years. So the Iraqi, and that was like a huge war, I mean,
they've been largely forgotten. They were, there's no interest in that anymore. Right. But if they, but if they can get themselves to Mexico, then come across the border, they're okay.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, if they can somehow scrape up enough money to get into Ecuador, El Salvador, Mexico, Panama, and work their way up through the country and hit our border, they would be in a much better place,
right,
than if they keep fighting at the embassy, keep going in for their appointments over and over and over again. Oh, this document isn't good enough. Oh, this isn't, you need to bring this in. I mean, we've all been to the DMV. Imagine the DMV times 1,000.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
And
then the
Wendy, in
lottery.
2006, in 2006 when I was there, some of my Terps who are now here in the U.S. were then trying to first raise around $20,000 to $25,000 U.S. as Afghans that made 800, 900 bucks a month, because they said if they could raise that much, they could get them on like a container ship on a Connex and get smuggled into the U.S. But you know guarantee the person's gonna get you there. They're not gonna dump you in the ocean, whatever. That was their first. They were interpreters working for the U.S. military, and they saw that as the shortest, quickest path was to try to smuggle their family members in via essentially stowaways and get through the whole customs and border without being caught, and then just pop up in the States somewhere. And that was 25 grand, but that was worth that versus trying to go through the process. And yeah, it was just and the one thing that comes up is every one of my Terps that has come here that has family, they have to come first. They have to be here before their family doesn't come with them. So all this hubbub about ripping kids out of their arms and separating kids, they don't even get that opportunity to bring their family with them. They have to come over first, get here before they can try to get their family here. It's they got to get established. They get usually one of the Catholic charities, one of the charities that place them there. They got to get get a place set up, do this, do that. They get a little stipend to carry them over, as my one Terp that came on talked about, and then they can finally do it and get them over here. So they don't even get that luxury to bring them with them, which is just like, say, when you brought that up, it was like, man, that's the perfect argument right there.
Well, it's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to me that just because we share a border with, and it is a very long border and it is very unpoliced. And I've brought this up several times over the years because it just eats at me. Back when the Patriot Act was originally enacted in 2002, something like that.
Yeah.
I actually tried to read it because people say if you're going to bitch about legislation, read it.
Right.
Know what it. And there's a whole section about security on the border with Canada. There was not a single section in the whole Patriot Act about the security of the border with Mexico. And I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this? And there seems to be just a lackadaisical attitude about our southern border. Well, it's very hard to patrol. It's, there's already a lot of people here. It would be very hard to deport them. There's always excuses and reasons why violating U.S. law, U.S. sovereignty, and our borders, we just have to accept it. And I think part of Trump's appeal he just says, no, we don't have to accept it.
Right.
We don't.
And he's been that way in a lot of stuff. He doesn't accept anything. They said he couldn't put a summit together with the North Korean leader as fast as June 12th. They said he couldn't even get him to come to the table and negotiate, and he's just continually defied everything that Washington or any of the quid pro quo has said that it takes. So yeah. So I want to highlight the one thing you mentioned, 2002, which is interesting. I put up a snippet today that I picked up off a friend's Facebook feed into the posting that I put up about the show tonight. And it is a public law, 107-296, dated November 25th, 2002. So just a little bit over a year after the attacks of 9/11. This is a law that was put in place from DHS. It's on DHS's website. And it talks about, what the placement of a child is and what the definitions are. And it says, unaccompanied alien child means a child who has no lawful immigration status in the U.S. Hence, they've tried to come here illegally. They are not 18 years old, and there's no parent or legal guardian in the U.S. or no parent or legal guardian in the U.S. available to provide care and physical custody.
Okay, I want to stop you right there.
Mm-hmm.
If somehow we as a nation are so horrible to take children away from their mothers at the border, why would a mother, or what kind of mother from El Salvador would pay some stranger to take their child from El Salvador to the border and across our border?
Yeah, that's how bad we are.
Well, I mean, how hypocritical do you have to be?
Right.
Because they're saying that really there's about 10,000 I think there's like 12,000 kids total, like in all the different groups. 10,000 of them are unaccompanied. So either you're going to judge, okay, you're going to judge anybody who separates their mother from their child for immigration purposes is horrible, or, and that applies to a mother who voluntarily sends their child to another country.
Right. With a stranger they don't know who's going to do anything to them.
And
Right.
that's the thing. They are raped, they're trafficked, they get into the United States, and they're, what was that? It was in Ohio where they found all those kids working on an egg farm, or egg on like a farm for eggs or chickens or something like that.
That's usually where they come from, yeah.
Shut up. I mean,
An
but
egg farm. They
it,
raise the little eggplants.
that's why I had to like pause and like rephrase. So I think it was in Ohio where they busted some
Yeah.
house that had, and it was a bunch of kids who had been smuggled across the border, and they were used for
Yeah.
slave labor.
I mean, look, the media and those that are wanting to make an issue out of this, that they have, there's a long history, there's a long precedence of using, pulling on heartstrings and playing to a an ideology, if you would, that seems to tailor to one side or not. Look at the Boko Haram thing. When President Obama was in office, he had this whole stink about this group that made this video about the Boko Haram group kidnapping all these girls and putting all these kids in slave labor and doing all these things to them. And we've talked about it many times on this show. And we immediately had the entire left, the type that the part of the population that would be very anti-war, anti-soldier, military deployment, whatever, screaming that we need to deploy soldiers. We need to go in and rescue these poor little children because we saw them, all these images and this great, well put together video showing all these terrible images of these kids being all kind of things done to them. And what happened? We deployed 100 special forces. President Obama deployed 100 special forces to middle of Africa with just did it, said deploy them, right? No one questioned it, and the Congress didn't question it or whatever. We've seen that happen there. We saw what happened when all the migrants were coming over from Syria, and you remember, Wendy, the baby, I think it was a little boy, the image of him washed up on the beach.
Right. Yeah,
right?
drowned.
This
Yeah.
country wasn't giving a crap about what was going on over there because they weren't coming here and they weren't caring about the boats full of people tipping over trying to cross the Mediterranean or cross anywhere else to get into Greece or Italy or anywhere else until that image showed that little boy washed up on the beach, and that's played across every screen and every front page. And then all of a sudden we were going to be the champions of righteousness and run over there and do stuff. It is that's all this is we've learned either whoever wants to control that narrative, whoever wants to perpetuate and capitalize on it, knows what images to show to pull at everyone's heartstrings, because it's going to not only show at 6 o'clock at night, it's going to show 24/7 every 30 minutes.
And I mean, some people's, my daughter, she gets irritated with me because sometimes she's very emotional, especially when she was in middle school and high school. She'd be very emotional, and I'd listen to her, and then I would just be like, start laying out the plan, like, okay, you need to do this and you need to do that. And she eventually told me when she got a little bit older, she's like, Mom, I just wanted you to just listen and cry with me and sympathize. And I'm like, you were talking to the wrong person.
Does she not know
You
her
should
mama?
know this by you should know this by now, because I'm very logical.
You are.
Um,
You are soft and gooey at the right times and
yeah,
about the
I mean,
right topics.
I do have empathy and sympathy.
You do.
I do feel bad. The problem
You're
is
you're
that
like a burnt marshmallow.
feeling bad.
You're like a burnt marshmallow. You're crusty on the outside, but on the inside, you're all soft and gooey. You just got to know. You got to get through the fire and the heat. I just came to my head. I just looked at you. I was like, you're like a burnt marshmallow. But I mean that in a very loving
Black
way,
hair.
because you know you are my sister from another mister. So
But the thing is that people, um, they have to think about the big picture, and they don't want to. They want to focus on the minutia of the day to day. Oh, that tiny, drowned baby, or oh, these handful of children taken away from their mothers who are being arrested. And somebody said something about, it just being a misdemeanor. What if it was like, I saw a meme. What if it was like reckless driving or whatever? Let me tell you, if a cop pulled you over and you were reckless driving with your children in the car and they arrested your ass, they would be calling somebody to come get your children
Yeah.
or CPS.
You can watch any
I
episode
don't care
of
how
Cops.
misdemeanor it
Yeah,
is.
any episode of Cops, Live PD, or any other cop show. Yeah, if they pull you over and no matter what it's for, if they pulled you over for a minor thing, but that you resisted arrest or did something dumb like try to spit on a cop or do something like that, and they arrest you and take you, they're going to say, who can we call to come get your kids? Or we're going to call social services and they're going to come down and pick them up. And
And somehow that's the argument, that it's just a misdemeanor.
yeah,
Oh, sorry, my dog wants to go out.
that's all
It's
right.
just a misdemeanor. It's fine. It's fine. It's just a misdemeanor. Why can't we keep these kids with their parents? Listen.
Do kids go to jail? I've never seen a kid allowed to go into jail with their parents.
There are children there are infants who are born in jail, mothers who are incarcerated,
Right.
and they do stay with them for a little while.
Right.
But they don't stay there for like years.
No,
You
they
know,
don't.
and some of these I don't know how long people stay in detention. You know, hold
Yeah.
on just a second. Let me
No
holler at
problem.
my
You do
son to
that.
come get my dog.
You know, you can handle her. You can handle her. I got some stuff. I can chat a little bit. I'll let you be quiet for a second. No, you're.
But I gotta get up and let her out.
Oh, that's okay. Everybody can see your profile shot when you get up. Down. I hope you got clothes on. Jeez,
Yeah,
can't do the show
clothes.
pantless. You know, well, you can, I guess, but whatever. It might increase our numbers a little bit. But
You talk.
all right,
Oh,
I got it.
Jake's
So-
coming to get the dog.
Okay. He's getting his hot pocket first. He doesn't care about the dog. No, it really is look, here's what they're doing. And let me make sure I make this really clear, because they're not telling you this on the mainstream media. But if you do some investigation and you look up some facts for yourself and don't take what's fed to you, here's what you'll know. If they come across the border and they think, and Border Patrol or whoever gets them, and they can tell, or they have a good, strong feeling that child is a member of that family, I call it a mama, papa, and they're loving on each other, and they know their name, and they get that image, they're going to stay with that. They're not going to take the kids from the family. This is the falsehood that's being pushed, that they just rip them away from them and throw them in a dog run. If they come across and they do not feel that there is a family connection there, like a 50-year-old man and a 12-year-old girl, or a 40-year-old man and 7 girls that are all around the same age that obviously cannot be born at the same time, or boys or whatever, and they just don't pick up on the body language and tone and that there's there, then if they don't feel like they're a member of the family, they're separating them. If the kids come across and they have no family, they're just coming across, where's a guardian? Where's an adult that's with you? Oh, they didn't, because like you said, Wendy, a mom or dad put them with somebody to ferry them up there to the border, or whatever happened. Then they're going to detain them and put them. They're not going to put them with adults, because guess what? There's detainment centers for adults. They're not just the kids that are any illegals coming across it. Any ports of entry, New Jersey, probably Detroit and Buffalo, any ports of entry into this country, not just the southern border. The adults get put into a DHS facility, ICE facility, or whatever it may be, and that's what they're doing with the kids. But no one's talking about the adults. Guess what? They're put in cells. The kids aren't put in cells. We can see they're put in big rooms. They have sports. They're feeding them. They're doing this. That's what they're doing. If you come across with your family, Wendy, if you were an illegal and you came across that boy right there with a hot pocket in his mouth and he's hugged up on you and says he loves you, and you're his mama mia, not mama mia, I guess, but you're his mama, and that stuff, they would not separate you two. They would put you in a facility where you two can be together. They've made that clear. But the media is not going to tell you that. They're going to make you think, because they show a few snapshot images, that our government, the Trump with his stormtrooper DHS troops, are just ripping people away and throwing kids and treating them like dogs and chaining them to the floor and all that kind of stuff. Don't believe the hype.
I think what frustrates me more than anything about the hypocrisy of the left is that, if a mother was driving recklessly with her children, we would judge her. Why are you or drunk driving with her children?
Right.
What is wrong with you? Or, God forbid, you should teach your children Christian values and homeschool with a Christian-based curriculum, and they are judged forwards and backwards by the left that you're somehow harming your children. But then on the flip side, there's no judgment on it. It's okay to send your kid 3 countries away by foot with a coyote, because just because you want to do this.
Right.
Okay, you know what? Fine. pick one side or the other. But I don't want to hear it out both sides of your mouth. I don't want to hear about how, a family who wants to raise their kids with a certain moral framework that is based in the Bible is wrong, while a woman who knows she is going to violate 2 or 3 countries' immigration laws and borders in order to send them to a foreign country is okay, and I should have sympathy for her. I have sympathy for her that she can't feed her child or take care of her child. You know what? It's tough. I
Yeah.
was a single mom, and I was in some dire straits, and it was tough,
Yeah.
and you want to do the best for your kids. I know there are times where I cried, where I just wanted to be able to do more for my children. I mean, feeding 2 kids on $30 a week, I did it. Some South American countries, they don't even have that $30 a week.
Right.
Again, I have this sympathy, but that doesn't mean, I know my kids, my dog, everybody, that doesn't mean that violating another nation's sovereignty and immigration laws and all of that is an acceptable solution.
Right.
Sending your child with a stranger. I literally cannot wrap my mind, when I think about my children and how much I love them, I literally cannot wrap my mind around.
That's a loud
Hey,
That's a
that
loud
was my
hot
dog
pocket.
and her
Okay.
food dish. Paying a stranger
Yeah.
and watching my child
Not
walk
even a
away
family
with
member.
them.
Yeah, not even a family member. Stranger. Like, good luck. Hope all goes well. I
Give
mean,
them money, give them my child, and hope that somehow they will make it 700 or 1,000 miles away to the great shining nation of the United States.
yeah, the nation it's so bad that
What?
yeah, that you're doing it. Absolutely.
We don't even let kids cross the street alone in this nation.
No, not even. No,
And if
absolutely
you
not.
do, if you're a free range parent, they call CPS on you.
Yep. But it's okay for them to do that and bring them up here. But anyways, yes. So obviously, I want to move on to some other topics. We've been on this for a while, but this has been a hot topic. And just all I ask is if you're listening, you're in the sound of our voice and or watching us, just do some research. Don't just believe what's being fed to you. Look, there's one thing we know is that President Trump knows how to handle marketing and public relations. The guy knows how to develop a message and a narrative, and there's nothing, love him or hate him, he knows how to get his point across and is a master at it. There is a reason why he is just enforcing a law that has been on the books since 2002. There's a reason why they're doing this. Guess what? Congress is now taking action because that's all he's been saying is take action. You can change this. It's a law. All I do is enforce them. He doesn't make it up. But what we're seeing is that Congress is doing something about it. So I wonder if he didn't do this, if he didn't maybe enforce the law as strictly as he has been in the last few weeks or a month or so, would they even care? Because the bottom line is, he's capitalizing, and this is my personal opinion, which I guess everything on here is, he is capitalizing on the hatred of him by the media and the left to cause action to happen in Washington. Now, how is that not the ultimate coup against the swamp? Because if he didn't give them something to hate him and give them a reason to hate him on the topic of the day, because they do it every day, then this would all be ignored. Because it's been going on. This law was put in place a long time ago. It was enforced by President Obama. He caught a little bit of heat over it, but then it got caught and got buried, and no one cared about it anymore because the media didn't carry it. So because they hate him and they're looking for something to go after him, he picked something that did, and now it's taking that to get Congress to take action. I don't know how you don't look at that and just consider that masterful playing of people with their own game, but that's my opinion. Yeah. All right. Speaking of playing games. I want to talk about Matt Burden and his unnatural love of gin, which is just the devil's juice. No, I'm just kidding, Matt. I see you in the chat room. I messed with Matt this week and his
I was
gin.
like, what? Are we not talking about the UN?
We're talking about Matt Burden and gin. No, I just looked up and I had to lighten the moment for a second. No, before we talk about the UN, I want to talk about someone playing games, and that's this idiot officer, or used to be officer. He was a former enlisted member in the Ranger Battalion. He was a cadet at West Point, and a month or two ago, he put up a picture of inside of his West Point bus driver cap there, of himself, spreading communism. Then he put up a picture opening up his West Point uniform with a Che Guevara shirt on underneath, and it's all about communism this, communism that. Some senators raised some cane. I think Rubio did, and a few others. And we now hear that he has been received other than dishonorable or other than honorable discharge. Yep. I think on conduct on becoming an officer and something else. And our good friend, I just had dinner with him couple weeks ago. Past guest on here, good friend Jimbo Hansen, who you see frequently on Fox News all the time. Wrote a nice opinion piece today up on Fox News about it, and so if you get a chance to check that out, Jim, no shortage of opinion from him, and wrote about that, and another gentleman, a Marine, that was just jailed for kind of actions along a similar path. But yeah, it just goes to show you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, and sometimes that prize is other than honorable discharge just to get 15 minutes of fame.
But I gotta say something.
Yeah.
He tried to be subversive, right? He was like, oh, communist, socialist, Okay, dude, when you are so self-absorbed that you're posting everything to your Instagram and your Twitter and you're like some teenage girl, get out. Just get out of town. I could not even take him seriously. Like, you were a ranger, you were a badass, you fought, and then you came back like some twisted, like, tweener who got a phone and realized that they could do selfies. Get out. Just get out.
Yeah.
That was my opinion of him.
No, that's it. You're right. It was very self-absorbed, and people will do anything to get their 15 minutes of fame and to be the martyr for the cause. And I guess if that's what makes you feel, if that's what makes you feel important, and makes you feel good about yourself, then so be it. So we'll see what happens. So, but he is out, and I hear that he is going to speak at some socialist conference in July. But yeah, so Jim wrote a great piece. Commie cadet deserves a discharge. Our military is no place for anti-American extremists. I can't think of a better title for that. And good job for Jim for writing that piece. And yeah, the other part you mentioned was the UN. Again, I just mentioned, President Trump does things for a reason. He knows how to bring attention to what he wants to bring attention to, and he seems to stand by what he's going to do. Just this evening, he had our UN ambassador and State Department Secretary Pompeo officially withdraw the U.S. from the UN Human Rights Council. Why do you think that is, Wendy?
Because they're a bunch of like human rights violating countries who suck. And so we've decided to stop contributing. Okay, again, we kind of deal with real life, right? They always talk about those enablers or like those, wives who know that their husband's a drunk and they know he beats the kids and they know that he's, is slacker and doesn't work. And yet they never say anything other than, oh, honey, maybe you need to. Our nation was like that for a very long time with the Human Rights Council. And they elect these crappy ass third world countries who endorse maiming, raping, torturing people, have these obscenely misogynistic laws. Women are just chattel. And somehow they're on a Human Rights Council. And the United States gets to sit at the table with them. And I know I've read articles on why, and it's because the Human Rights Council condemns Israel every meeting that they can.
And what's interesting is members are China, Cuba, Venezuela, are all members, which have a history of a proven track record of human rights violations.
Yeah, communism is so human rights friendly.
Yeah, I think that maybe
was sarcasm.
Yeah, I think that cadet they should join the Cuban military. I bet he could be an officer there. But yeah, so Nikki Haley called it a cesspool of political bias. She says nothing was done in the last year except they just slam Israel. And it seems to be that Nikki Haley made headlines a while back, not long after being appointed that position, that she was taking names and that the administration was taking names. And there's a lot of people, Wendy, that are saying she is probably going to be our first female president, and people on the left and right both see her as a viable candidate to be president of the United States down the road. Um, which
She's very there's something about her demeanor that makes her trustworthy. She's one of those people, she says she does, or says what she's going to do, and then she does what she says she's going to do.
Well,
You know,
she is she would be a big threat to the left because she represents everything that they're for, but they can't be for her, right? So she wa-
minority
she was
woman.
she was Indian American, Indian from the country, not Native American. She comes from Indian descent. She's a female, so it's double minority, if you would. It was a governor of South Carolina. Is definitely on the world stage in foreign relations now, so you can't doubt her domestic abilities. And she was an executive of the state of South Carolina. She is, again, she's a female. She is a minority, come from Indian descent. It's kind of like Herman Cain. He represented goes against their narrative of what a Democrat should be, or what a conservative isn't. I guess is really more so that.
So, okay,
So it
but
should be
here's the
interesting.
thing. It's always, you have to get all of the conservative and the moderate Republicans behind a candidate. So she has to really appeal to, because how many Republican candidates were running in the primary last time? Like 16?
17, yeah, 17,
Yeah,
including the president. Yeah,
yeah. And it has to narrow down.
right.
And so what she's currently doing is really appealing to all of our righteous anger of listening to the UN and listening to them taking our money, and then just completely disregarding who we are as a nation. Their abuses, when you have a human rights council and you have all these nations on the human rights council, and then your own troops go in and rape and or pay for and pimp out children and women in the nations that you're supposed to be protecting. It's pretty hard to take you seriously. And she is I love her in the sense that she's not frivolous. There's
Right.
there's no um,
She might. I
you know,
mean, just like Condi Rice. I mean,
like
she
that
is. She
feel.
is to the point. She is a
Yep.
strong leader. She is sure of herself. She is everything you're looking for in a president, in my
Yep.
opinion.
Very
Uh, and,
self-assured.
and if
I like
Condi is was very, very smart. I mean, she was an expert in Russian affairs. But and I think would have been a great possibility. I think Nikki Haley is right up there with it. I mean, I think she brings everything I'd be looking for in a president. She has domestic, foreign policy, executive policy experience. Yeah, I think it'd be great. I see, because that's a difference. I don't care, nor do I want to vote for someone just because of the first of something, because nowadays
Yeah.
you can identify as whatever. I mean, I think President Trump should identify as an old black lady, and he would be the first old black lady president, right? Because you can say whatever you want to say. So, but I think it doesn't matter. It's just not what it gets me too. I just go on a rant here. Isn't it Martin Luther King that talked about not being judged by the color of your skin, but the content of your character? Isn't that against everything of I voted for him because he's this race, or I'm voting for her because she's a female? That goes in the face of everything that Martin Luther King talked about at
Yep.
at the National Mall or any other time. And it's like it's I just look and I go, how are you so blind to the fact of what you are spouting goes against the person that you claim you're honoring? That's what affirmative action to me is the most anti Martin Luther King thing there is affirmative action of giving someone an opportunity, or giving someone in a school, or giving someone a job, all because of some outward characteristic of them, and not on their abilities and their merit. But anyways, that was my rant on that one.
We've been, people have been saying that for years now. That our country is very divided, and it makes me sad because it's like you've spent 20 years in the military. I've spent 24 years just going from base to base to base, and we have seen all the different colors and races and nationalities all working towards a common goal. And so it's really frustrating, and I'm told repeatedly, well, you don't see the racism because you didn't grow up with the racism. You don't see that. Well, no, but it makes me very, very sad that all across this country, there are people who can't, there are Black people who can't look at a white person and say that, well, that person might not be racist and might not be judging me. And a white person who can't look at a Black person and say, they're probably a BLM person and they,
Yeah.
probably already have their prejudged ideas about me. It makes me sad because we didn't used to be like
No, we
this.
weren't that way, except for about the last 8 to 10 years. It really got more and more. I mean, I grew up in the South for the most part. We're not being bounced around to military bases, and I at one point in my youth, I lived in a place that was pretty much all Caucasian, all white, and then I moved to a place that was 75% black. And I used to, before that, either one, I lived in a place where in middle school out west that had our homecoming king and queen were black and white. It wasn't even a thought. I didn't even think about it. It wasn't in your face all the time. It wasn't something mentioned, and it was foreign to me. Did you see someone as black or white or Pakistani or Native American or this? Yeah, you saw it, but it's like, okay, that, just like that person's got blonde hair and this one's got black hair. It's like, it doesn't make you for
It's physical
recognizing someone.
differences, but it doesn't mean much.
Right, right. It's the social justice warriors today. You see it sometimes. Someone's reporting a crime or something. Like, can you describe what they look like? Or they can't even say what nationality or skin color they are. You see it on the news when an attack happens. It's so when the attack happened in San Bernardino, when the initial reports said that it was two white guys, the media couldn't say it fast enough. Right, just like the lady that shot up, was it YouTube? Right, this white female. They couldn't say it fast enough. But when Hassan shot up Fort Hood, they were like, we know his name, but we can't say it. Like, oh, okay, that guy's Muslim. It was just like, every time the news gets it, they're like, we know his name, but we're not ready to release it yet. It was like, why? Just say it. I mean, you don't have to be afraid. And then it's like when they found out that the lady had shot up YouTube. She was, Persian or Farsi. She's from Iran and all that stuff. Then that whole narrative changed, right? They didn't talk about that anymore.
Yeah, she was crazy. She had mental issues.
Yeah, she was mental issues. She liked dogs and cats and was mad at YouTube for stealing her hits or views or whatever. But we see it all the time. It's perpetuated. Even to people. I don't think people realize it though. I don't think they realize when they hear those news blips of the racism that is being spawned, and racism, not just race, but against the bias, should I say, of against religions and race and genders and all that stuff. It's being perpetuated by the news because it helps grab the story. In my opinion, I don't know how you feel.
I haven't had cable in like 10 years. Don't miss it. Every once in a while I stay in a hotel and I'm like, oh, look. And then I immediately start switching channels.
So you just watch Netflix or what?
Yeah, I have no interest. I read news articles, but I read several. I read the AP, I read CNN, I read Fox News.
Do you read Drudge?
And I read all of them.
Do you read the alt-right, Breitbart, Blaze, Drudge?
I have read those.
Okay.
And some articles I'm like, oh, really, guys? Because again, there's that bias.
Right.
But I don't take. I want to know what happened. And so that's what I focus on. If something tells me what happened, I took a journalism class like in college, high school, college, and it was like the who, what, when, where, why, the 5 W's.
Yep.
And now I read the articles and I always check that first paragraph. Does it tell you that? And it doesn't. You find the important information buried 6 paragraphs down and you're like, seriously,
Right.
And so at this point now I just read articles, and some of it I don't even care. I have no shame. I'm like, oh, I just want to read some fluff about some crappy Hollywood actor and how they went down the tubes and how their lives ended up, and then because that seems much more interesting than some of the crap that's being put out.
Right. Oh, absolutely. You got to wade through it. It's like that old saying, right? There's 3 sides to every story, his, hers, and the truth in the middle. I think people just don't realize that when they listen to news or read stories or articles, right? There's really, you can't take it on face value. You can read it and say, okay, maybe part of that's true, or whatever. You got to take some time, I think, and just analyze and see what looks like opinion, or try to pull out of what may actually be a fact, right? But even that, statistics, people skew those however they want. Yeah. And speaking of skewing a story, I'm going to segue into this. Have you heard about this young lady that falsely claimed that she was raped in college, and I guess it all came out that it was all a lie?
Yeah, I posted it a couple weeks ago when she was found guilty. And it's really horrible because what happened was I think she held her story until like once she got in court, and then she fessed up that she had made it all up.
Did they say why
So
she did? Was it to get back at someone or to
I
I
don't
didn't,
think so.
I wasn't
I don't
tracking
think
it.
so. I think she just, you know, I think when you're young and you're stupid and you feel like you're gonna make a point, or you're going to punish somebody, or you're going to scare them, you know, with some tactic. Like when you're young, your brain isn't fully developed and you're just stupid and you
Yeah.
make stupid choices. And we see young people do this all the way,
Yeah, they
all the
say was
time.
it cerebral cortex isn't developed till you're 25.
But then every once in a while you get somebody like this who doesn't, like, once the cops come and they start taking a statement, and this person gets hauled off in handcuffs, that's when you should say, "Oh my gosh, I made a horrible mistake," and
Yeah.
start trying to right the wrongs. A person with a good moral being, a good heart, and empathy would say, I would not want another no matter how much I hate them or am mad at them, I would not want someone to go through that kind of horrible thing. This is also why my ex and I get along. Because I'm not,
Who's watching the show, by the way, just so you know.
I know. Well, he's probably not. He's working,
Oh,
but he probably chimed in for a second just to see Jake walking around in his shorts behind me.
yeah.
But you don't. I guess maybe I'm just like some sort of stupid Pollyanna where I think people should, just kind of let things go. If they are going their own way, or if break up and you're really mad at them, okay, torturing them or accusing them of rape or whatever other circumstances that people do, it always shocks me. I am like the worst sucker for those clickbait, like the 13 worst mother-in-law stories, because it just I read every single one of them because it just blows me away that people can be that hateful or that
Yeah.
ugly. And that's what I think this girl was. I think she got caught up in the circumstances. And once she got all the way up until she was sitting in that chair in front of a judge, like maybe she thought it would just all go away, or whatever self-delusional thing
Well,
she
it's
had
like
going
someone
on.
lies, right? And they lie to cover up the lie and keep lying, cover the lie. At some point, they just realize they've gotten too deep, right?
But yeah, but they don't have any way to, especially when you're
No.
young, you can't figure out a way to back
No,
out of it,
they,
right?
yeah, and that's at a degree. That's a level of accusation that is, obviously when someone
That's
says that, they can't even,
life destroying.
they can't even, have a mindset of or conceive what that will do, right? It's not like, hey, there's his dad's going to talk to him and give him a whipping and ground him, right? No, like he's getting arrested and facing like his life ruined and paying for lawyers and everything else, all because you just said something, which is such a it's such a bad thing for a number of reasons. One, for guys already, there already is a misnomer, if you would, or this thought that, well, yeah, it's always guys that do it. It's never women's never wrong. We see this in paternity cases, right? We see this in the court system. It's the and stuff like
Family
that.
court.
In family court, it's always the guy that's the worst, and there's more than enough cases where we see it. That's not always the case. It's pretty equally shared. And it also it takes, so it kind of upholds the, see, you can't believe you can't believe everything accused against you, and you're pounding on this I want to say stereotype or this misnomer about men. But at the same time, for the women that really are abused and raped, you're kind of distracted. You're kind of lessening a little bit that someone's going to believe them, right? Because if you had enough of this public happening, then people wouldn't even believe. We see this with take it to the whole Weinstein thing and everything. People were defending him, and people were kind of blowing it off. And now after the fact, we've heard all the stories where people kind of thought it was happening and knew it was happening, but not until it came out in the public and came in everyone's face, and everyone realized, wow, this is a lot worse than it is. I guess there was really more to this. The only thing, he slapped some girl in the butt versus he's forcing his way into the shower with some lady, right?
So I'm glad you brought up Weinstein, because I've been thinking about this for a couple days because I've been watched The Ranch. Do you know that show?
I've heard
It
about it. I
has
haven't watched it though.
Okay, so it has Sam Elliott and Ashton Kutcher and Danny Masterson. Okay, Danny Masterson was accused of rape and all this other stuff after the Me Too thing happened.
Yeah, he's a Scientologist guy from the '70s show. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is that on the '70s show, he was kind of like that skeezy guy.
Yeah.
And on the ranch, if you watch the show, he's completely like he is written as the most skeezy, always hitting. He was sleeping with this one. She was a MILF basically, this older woman. And they're like there's wildfires around. And he's trying to talk her into going to bathroom with him, for sex. And his character has been written this way since the beginning of the show. And when the Me Too thing came out, they were very shocked and appalled, and they took him out of the show. Okay, you know what? You were perfectly happy with writing him lines saying, hey, you want to go to the bathroom and bleep, bleep, bleep? You were perfectly happy with that as a writer and as a producer and as a show and as a Netflix network or whatever. You were perfectly happy with that until it happened in real life or he was accused of it in real life. And now somehow you're all of a sudden appalled. Hollywood is like that.
They eat
They
their
don't have,
young. They absolutely, they've been just, yeah, you're absolutely right. They are
they can
okay
get the
with it.
laughs and the kicks when the comedians make a joke about women or women's bodies. And then all of a sudden, maybe he touched some girl on the butt. Oh, then it's just horrifying. Okay, he talked about it. He talked about when he was 20 and in college, and you laughed about it
Yeah.
until some girl actually came out and said me too and used the hashtag and was using the Twitter, and then all of her girlfriends were piling on. All of this, the pitchfork brigade has gotten out of control. I think that, yeah, there have been times where I felt uncomfortable. My daughter is in Europe right now on study abroad. And she told me that she went to the club last weekend. And and I was like, so how was it? Because I've lived in Europe for 7 years and I know what the clubs are like. They're meat markets. And she was like, they were so like sketchy and they were very predatory. Like she's a little bit older. Some of the girls are like 18, 19 years old and she's
Right.
22. And she was just like fierce. Like, can I help you? And
Yeah.
I'm so proud of her.
She gets that from her
know?
mama. She is not.
Yeah, guys were trying to squeeze in and dance. And she was just like, she said, it wasn't the Irish. And I said, how do you know it wasn't the Irish? Well, because they weren't speaking English, Mom. I can't understand accents, so I wouldn't think the Irish were speaking English either, because I don't get accents at all. But, that kind of predatory feel, you know what it is. And you can either do as my daughter did, which is to deal with it.
Right.
You can be a bitch. Can I help you? You need to move along. I've had girlfriends at bars get hit on, guys just like leaning over right on them and say, you know what? You're ugly. You need to move on. And some people would say that's really mean and that's cruel. You know what? He was 3 inches from my face.
Right. He was in that personal zone. Right.
Is he allowed to do that? No.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go on Twitter and me too it and claim victimhood because he was in my personal space. You just take care of business. And I have a lot of a difficulty with the whole I'm a feminist and I'm a strong, powerful woman and I can do this and I make millions. And when I was young, this horrible thing happened to me. And they get like, I'm like, get over yourself. Get over yourself. You can't
Well, it's just
have
like
people
the comedian Aziz, right? That was one of the first blow-ups of that, when the fact that, it came out that the lady that accused him, and he was hosting some show and they were ready to take him off and everything, it came out that she just had a bad date. Like everything
Yeah.
was consensual, and then she just had a bad date and said it didn't turn out.
Regret.
I don't know. She didn't get he didn't buy the lobster for her or something. I don't know what it was. Yeah. So then she just went out there and started accusing him of stuff, and that was the first of now several where it's I've seen a few stories where the tides turn, and even some females journalists and stuff are like, okay, this has to calm down. These guys are being, for lack of a better term, hung at the stake, like their Salem witch trials, just by someone saying something. And that's really what this is. This is the Salem witch trials flipped. It's like, hey, that guy's a witch. He touched my butt. Strap him to the pole and light the fire. right? Before anyone, not saying that some aren't justified. Obviously, there's way too much smoke around that Weinstein fire. There's got to be some heat somewhere, and there's enough, right? They're going on. We saw the stuff with Bill Cosby. There's no doubt there's a number of guilty people, but this whole concept that our country is built on about innocent until proven guilty has been
That's gone.
completely ignored and forgotten about.
Yeah,
Right.
that's completely gone. And that happened to a local bar owner down here in Wisconsin, and I watched it unfold online, and I was so shocked. He had this web page, he had his Facebook page, and he posted all these obnoxious memes, and we've all seen him with the boot with the baby fell asleep on a woman's chest, and it's like, crashed out at the bar, passed out at the bar type thing, and we all kind of laugh. If you don't like it, if it's not your sense of humor, you just move on. You find another page. There's so many different Facebook pages. You just move on. That's what
Yeah.
grown-ups do.
Right. Well,
Well,
those around the military, we have very, very dark sense of humor,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the world would be just shocked at what some of us we find we find funny, or uh,
It makes me giggle like a schoolgirl because I find it hilarious.
yes, we've well, for those that have been, even in combat, right? There's some bad, dark, horrible things. You have to make light of it. That's the only way you keep your sanity. And I tell people you don't find a better example of diversity than you do in the military, where you bring people from all four corners of the country and sometimes out of the country and bring them in a small tight group like a squad or a platoon. You bring all this eclectic sense of humor and background and experience together, where it's all you can do is rip on it. You have a southern boy from Alabama with someone out of Massachusetts with somebody from Guam on the same team. Right? You're going to bring all this together, and you just have this dark sense of humor. But nobody, there's a lot of homoerotic sense of humor in the military, right? There's a lot of gay sense of humor, and everyone just they go with it. No one gets offended. No one gets wrapped around the axle. It's just a way of life. And the American people would be shocked if they saw some of the stuff that some of us think is funny. But anyways, that's a whole nother topic for a show, and I'm not sure I want to expose all that to some of the people listening. But we've been going for a while, Wendy. We've hit on a number of topics. I know I brought a couple of them up. Is there anything you want to talk about before we wrap up? Just any topic that's been kind of near and dear to your heart, that's either in the news or maybe it's local. Maybe it's not in the news, but you think is something that you think people should know about.
You know, it really, when we talk about Nikki Haley and how she pulled out of the human rights group, you know, uh, I'm somewhat so my company's related to Israel in a way, and I watch the Israeli news, or the news about Israel and the Palestinians. And when we're talking about the bias, you were talking about the bias, and I'm astonished at and this is part of the reason why Nikki Haley pulled out is the bias against Israel, and the bias against um, this little tiny nation completely surrounded by all of these Muslim nations. And somehow they're the root of everything horrible that goes on in the Middle East. Um, if I were to say, we need to, if our president were to specifically say, our goal is to completely crush, destroy, and annihilate Mexico so it does not exist, people would be shocked and astonished that you would say that. And yet the Palestinians and their leadership say it repeatedly. The other Arab nations have said it since the founding of Israel. And so it's really interesting to me that if you read the news stories and just think about the history, when you think about like the 5-Day War, when it was
Mm-hmm.
like 5 countries against one little tiny nation, and because they were smart and launched an air assault against Egypt and laid out all their planes and grounded all their planes, and that's the only reason why they won, but they were smart about it. But when you read the news, you read, like, I see the memes online, I see and again, we come back to the empathy of the Palestinians, but choose better leadership. actually work towards
Right.
peace.
Right.
So
I
that's
mean,
something that,
we
I
never
mean, what do
thought
you
we
think
never
about
thought. I
that?
don't
Do
think.
you even follow the Israeli situation and the things that they kind of like, the Iron
Oh,
Dome
I
and the
do.
100
Yeah,
rockets launched a
I've
day? And
always been a fan of their eye for an eye foreign policy. I watch how they don't. Something happens. The Palestinians. They just had it happen a few weeks ago, right? Palestinians shot some rockets over, and they immediately went right into Syria and took out some sites, right? And there's no doubt that they're doing that all the time. They're of course always fighting against the tunnels being dug. They have a huge anti-tunnel part of their military that's always trying to exploit those and shut those down. Yeah, it is. They are left, like you said, they're in the middle of a lot of like outside of ocean on one side. They have a lot of hostility surrounding them on all the other three sides, and they need every bit of help they can, which says a lot with what we did today in the UN, because that was a vote of to stand right next to them. And you look at what the prime minister did just a month and a half ago, where he came up to that news conference, totally unorthodox, laying out all the stuff that Iran had in the nuclear development program. We and Toby
yeah,
talked about it. Had one of the best presentation skills I've ever seen. There's a lot of people in business that can learn how to do a PowerPoint from that guy, because he had that stuff down and rehearsed to the T. And you don't even see any of our, I've never seen a U.S. president or any kind of leader do it to that degree. But I mean, it is they continue to fight against. I'm sure they feel like it. They're almost fighting against the entire world. Um,
yeah.
you know,
And yeah, I guess that's, like I said, if we were to tell another nation that we would want them to never exist, that our sole goal is to annihilate them.
we'd be accused of genocide. We'd be accused
Yeah,
of we'd be
of
compared to Hitler.
insanity.
We'd be compared to Hitler.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just closing our borders
It's
is
is getting
somehow
us
like Trump is insane.
right, and it's getting him compared to Hitler just for doing that. Right.
Yeah, and yet the Israelis are completely surrounded by countries who are avowed
Right.
to destroy them and kill them. And it's just like, and then the UN Rights Council, Human Rights Council is just like, oh, Israel's killing those Palestinians again. Well, what about the 100 rockets? Well, they should not. And the kites, they do fire kites, right?
Yeah, I
Which I
saw
didn't
that
even know
today.
was a thing.
I didn't either. I thought that was like an accident, like your kite caught on fire. I didn't realize it was a weapon of
Yeah,
choice. Yeah.
they fly kites with fires and try to set fires on the other side of the border,
Yeah.
or outside of their little compound. They're like,
Whatever
who
works,
does
I
that?
guess, right? Whatever works. You know.
Insurgency. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's almost a type of insurgency.
The next
You
thing
know,
they're going to do is they're going to watch Monty Python, and rather than launching rabbits, they're going to start launching like young Palestinian suicide bombers with catapults over the border, with a flaming torch in her hand and a bomb vest, and try to land on top. I mean, I don't want to give them an idea, but I mean, I think they're one step away from doing that, putting suicide bombers in catapults and shooting them, which would make for awesome video, shooting them across the border, because it would only take once or twice, and Israel would come up with a great defensive mechanism for that. I don't know what it is. It could be a Vulcan machine gun. It could be something shooting about 2,000 rounds a minute, but that would really be viral.
and the
Video.
Human Rights Council would have a flippin' heart attack.
Yeah, you see this young Palestinian man get launched over the thing and then just explode into a ball of pink mist as the anti-catapult defense system
And you know what the
engages.
news would say? The news would be like, oh, 20-year-old young Palestinian man on an amusement park ride that malfunctions is killed and destroyed by the Israelis when he's out with his family on
Yeah,
a wonderful vacation day. Like, they would like twist it around that way.
on a
That's
one-way
what kills me.
on a one-way free music amusement park ride. Yes, the catapult. It's you get in line. You get one time on it. That's it. Here, push this button when you get to the other side. Yeah. Here. I see a new Ross Patterson movie script developing right now. I hope he is watching the show. But no,
That's so horrible. We're horrible.
yes, we
people.
are horrible.
We're
That's
gonna
it.
get
That's a
help.
little bit of insight into the dark humor that we have. I did not mean to go there.
You start laughing and then you start like kind of crying because you get visuals.
Well, and I'm coming up with more ideas. I should get into some screenwriting there. But no, that's a good point. And my company also has some. We have a part of our companies there too. And I've had some talks with them, some of the guys when they come to the States, and Yeah, it's a weird situation. It's a country I hope I always get. I always want to go visit. I haven't been there yet, but I'm a big his study of world religions, of all religions, and of course being a Christian, I would always love to get there, and it's one of the places I hope I get a chance to one of these days. But
Me too.
yeah, so yeah, great show. I can't think of anything else I really wanted to hit on because we kind of brought up a lot of topics. I'm checking the news feed. A lot of stuff going on today. The FBI, DOJ. You can definitely read about all that stuff. There's really not much else we can say on here about that. And I want to thank Wendy for coming on and helping me host tonight. Toby's in the air right now. He was in the chat room. He was getting on a plane, so it looks like
Yeah, where was he, in Cabo San Lucas or
yeah,
something?
he was Cabo, taking some veterans outdoors, doing great things down there, taking some vets on a probably once in a lifetime fishing trip. It's a tough job. He's got to do it though.
I know. You just kind of want to go, really, really? This is what you do for a living?
We have great discussions he goes weekend after weekend, and the poor guy loses a lot of weekends, but he's going to some of the world champion fishing and hunting grounds, and I know he has a hard time complaining about it because it's people would give anything to do it, and he gets to do it every weekend almost.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But he does lose a lot of family time, so it's good from getting home. So yeah, and Toby and I will be together next week, so we're very excited about that. I will be in the Southern Studio, so we'll be together. So excited about that. Hope you're able to tune in, Wendy. And again, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It really, really means a lot. And it's much better to talk with you than me just talk by myself. That kind of stinks. And,
yeah, because I have a lot to say, and I just go on and on, so you can kind of like sit back. Just let me ramble.
And we haven't talked in a long time, and I miss seeing you because we haven't talked.
I miss like just I tuned into the show last week for the first time because it's been I was going to school and I was doing all the homework and working and everything.
Single mom, you got school, you got work. You're really busy with a lot of stuff. I do keep up with a lot of your stuff, but life is I think it's safe to say this is doing a lot better, and you have you're in a much better spot. And but I always
have time to listen to your show and listen to you and Toby. I miss Toby too. You guys are all. It's just like we said at the very beginning. Just circling back around, we're all family. We're all friends. We all love each other, and so.
And we can not see each other for a long time, but we get together, and it's like not a moment has passed.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. But well, hey, again, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it, hon. You are absolute a joy to have on the show and talk to anytime. And we got to do it more often. We can't wait till then be on the show. I know we text each other once in a while, but we got to make some time. And that's a message to everybody. We all know we've all lost someone that we never expected. We've had God takes us when He says it's ready, and you don't take anything for granted, including don't keep that hate in your heart. Forgive people because trying to say it at the tombstone, at the graveside, is too late. And no matter how you feel about politics or this or that or whatever, look, we're all people. We're only here for a short time, and at the end of the day, none of that crap matters. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. Yeah. So with that, I guess that's my PSA for the night. Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you, everybody, for letting us come into your homes for about an hour and a half. And we will see you next week here on Stu and the Nun at 8 o'clock Eastern. Both of us live from the Southern Studio in the great city of Austin, Texas. So until then, thank you and good night. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nun Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenun.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, PoohHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.